In part one of this series as to how much deficit are the states in the United States are facing, we talked about the overall picture and the ways and means by which the budgets can be balanced. Today we are going to take a look at four largest economies. Some of them are big enough that by themselves they could be called as one of the top 5 economies of the world. California, for example, 4.1 trillion. So what we are going to do today is to drill down on four big economies in the United States, their finances, and how they are going about trying to balance their budgets. It's very important for many of us because much of the Indian diaspora in America lives in one of these four states. So it's very important that you understand it. And for worldwide, you need to understand how things are as far as the United States are concerned in terms of how much the states are in good shape or in bad shape. There are some success stories also, and there is a lesson to be learned there too. Who are governing those states gives us a clue. Here we go. A small request as always to please like this video, and if you have not already subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel. Here we go. Who was Parshurama, who led a life of devotion, dedication and daring? Why did he take birth on the earth? Was it to eradicate corrupt Kshatriya rulers who had become tyrannical and oppressive, or was it to bestow daya for the needy? We mentioned last time that there are four ways in which they can try and balance the budgets. Now let's take a look at the big enchilada, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that happens to be California. California has projected a deficit of $45 billion, B as in boy. And the estimates are ranging, but everybody seems to agree it might be 44.9 billion, but round it off 45 billion. And what happens is, now how is the state of California going to balance the budget? How do you fill a $45 billion hole? So I have some numbers here, but that doesn't take you to all of 45 billion. But I want to first share them with you, and then I can tell you where they may be able to find more money, but that means cutting off some huge benefits. Let's get to that in just a moment. Where are the cuts that can be done? Budget cuts. This has been more or less agreed. $17.3 billion. So that means you bring down the 45 to 28. Then there are rainy day funds of close to 4.2. Remember we said whenever there is an excess fund, the state can salt it away for a rainy day. So like that, 4.2. The total of these two is 21.5. Then you have climate change related funds, that's going to be cut off. That's going to be 3.6 billion. And internet connectivity to underserved regions, like in the rural California. By the way, California is a huge state, huge state. It's not just Los Angeles and San Francisco. There are many more cities. Okay, and that is about 2 billion. The total comes to 27.1 billion. Just round it off to 27. That means there is still $18 billion that needs to be found somewhere, that needs to be cut. Well, I was going through the documentation, and I have actually published a story in pgurus.com. It talks about how much money California is spending for its illegals. The number will shock you. The lowest number is 9.1 billion as in boy, and the highest number is 32 billion as in boy. So 9 plus 32, let's take the average, right? That comes to 20 billion. If out of that 20 billion, let's say 20 billion is what is being spent, if we can take out 17 billion, cut the illegal benefits back, way back. These are illegals. They are not eligible for any benefits. Cut it back, and that's how you can close the deficit. Otherwise, California is going to want to issue bonds, and what happens if nobody buys the bonds is anyone's guess. There is a huge problem on the hands of California. And since Gavin Newsom, who is having presidential aspirations, is the governor, he needs to figure out whether he's going to come out ahead or he's going to let this thing ride, and then people will point this as a bad spot in his gubernatorial experience, and that might actually derail his campaign. That's just my 2 cents. Let's see how it plays out. Next, New York. New York has a structural debt of $4.3 billion, and this is because of, again, rising Medicaid costs and substantial expenditures related to managing the influx of asylum seekers. See, the same story repeats. What the F was the Biden administration thinking? That money grows on trees? Maybe that's what they did. I mean, this guy was half senile. What was he doing? No, nobody even knows how many things he did on his own cognition and how many were just prompted and auto-pinned. That's another huge problem that Biden has to answer. Get back to what is happening in New York. How are they going to balance the budget? But in comparison with California, this seems trivial. Again, my 2 cents is that this is what's going to happen. The money that's going to asylum seekers, illegal, that will be cut, and that is how the balancing of books is going to take place in New York, in my opinion. I'll keep you posted in about 6 months' time or 3 months' time. I'll come back and revisit it, because by that time we will know what happened in these two states. Now let's take a look at Texas. Here there is a record surplus. 33 billion, they are having a surplus. And how is it that they got that much? It has come by robust economic growth, high energy prices, and increasing sales tax revenues. Now what they want to do is they want to use this money to give property tax relief, substantial investments in critical infrastructure projects, and bolstering its economic stabilization fund, which is essentially a rainy day fund, to prepare for future economic fluctuations. Well, I have some, not so good news coming down the pipeline. Remember, I kept telling you that any petro transaction between two countries gets settled in Houston. Where is Houston? In Texas. So Houston gets a fair amount of revenues from all these things. But we know that countries are now paying for their petrol imports in currencies other than the US dollars. How much of a hit is that? 20%? Let's take 20%, which means the net earnings that Houston was getting from all these things is also going to get affected by 20%. So that is going to start putting a hole. If that goes to 50%, then I think Texas will see this whole excess evaporate in a few years. Texas is run by Republicans, and so is Florida, and Florida also is enjoying continued budget surplus. By the way, in Florida there is no state tax, meaning that when you file for income tax, you don't have to file any taxes for state. Also, whenever you buy something from the stores, you don't need to pay any sales tax. So that's a big advantage, right? I mean, whatever you see on the marked price, that's all you pay. So Florida does have a lot of advantages, which is why many retirees seek to retire and settle down in Florida. And with that, I don't know how they are managing it, but my guess is that they have a fair amount of tourism. I mean, there is a city called Orlando that does nothing but tourism. There are so many theme parks, and it's very close to Cape Canaveral, and you can go there and come back, and it's a beautiful place. 60 miles from the coast, Orlando, Florida. Disney World, I think. Disney World is there, and there are 5 or 6 Universal theme parks. There are many other things also. It's a fantastic place. Florida manages it that way, and also the Keys also are very beautiful. Now let's take a look at the national outlook of the economy. It is a critical factor for state budgets because persistent inflation, potential slowing economic growth can individually also affect many of the states. If the center sneezes, all these states will start catching cold. That is the reality of it. So it's very important that the government at the center, the Trump administration, keep their finances robust and clean, and that would pave way for a more prosperous state development on a state basis. So these are just the top 4 economies. There are others which are doing okay, not so okay, but the majority, 30 out of 50, they are actually having deficits. So we'll wait and see how this plays out. So whenever they have stopped saying that now, US doesn't pontificate to others about how well they should be managing their finances, since US is also now having problems. The takeaway is everybody has a problem. We all need to shield and take responsibility and make sure that these problems are addressed in a right way. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.